So to talk about conducting and to talk about what I do and to talk about some of the things that I'm thinking about when I'm working at home here at this desk, I want to talk about just 8 specific notes. There are 8 notes that I think about all the time. There are 8 notes that I worry about all the time, and they are 8 notes that I have conducted many times and failed to conduct effectively many times. Those 8 notes look like this. If you are a person who reads music, and many of you who I see who are watching are people who read music, then these 8 notes are familiar to you. You may be chuckling to yourself. If you are not a person who reads music, they sound like this. Right, these 8 notes are the first 8 notes of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. And while I keep saying there are 8 notes, technically, if you're counting the dots here on the page, there are 9 notes. But there are 8 audible pitches that you see here. This is the very beginning, the first 5 measures of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. Probably the most famous 5 measures of music ever written. You've heard them many times. They've been written over about 215 years ago. Great music. But these notes are hard to conduct. They are hard to perform together. And as an example, and I'm not sure how exactly this is going to work here on Facebook Live, but as an example, I'm going to conduct for you these 5 measures, and I'd love for you to try to sing at home. So it's just bum, bum, right? G and E flat and F and D. Just bum, 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 bum. But we need to do it in a way that is organized and together as if you are 80 musicians on stage together. All right, here we go. Good luck. So how'd you do? I'd be very curious to know how that went with folks listening all over the country and trying to do that together. When I do this in a classroom or in guest speaking engagements, it's almost always a mess. Very rarely has this gone well that a whole group of people the first time through goes bum 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 bum, bum 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 bum, and does it cleanly and together. It's pretty rare. Unless, of course, you're a trained orchestra full of musicians. So let's talk about what I'm doing in those gestures, and we'll talk about why these are hard. First of all, let's take a look at Beethoven's own handwriting. This is what the score looked like when Beethoven wrote it. And I'll try to point some things out. Maybe you can see my cursor moving around on the screen. At the top, it's a little bit hard to read, but he's written Allegro con brio. This means fast with liveliness, or fast and lively. Allegro con brio is a fairly specific tempo marking, fast, lively. And then we have the instruments in an order that is not a modern order. Now we write instruments in a different order, but what Beethoven's written here is violin 1, violin 2. In this case, he's written unison here, where violin 2 is playing the same thing that violin 1 is playing. Then we have violas, flutes, oboes, clarinets, bassoons, horns, trumpets, timpani, and down here are cello and bass. Okay. There's some interesting things on this first page. First of all, the bum 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 bum, bum 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 bum. It's all of the string players, the violins here, the violas, the cellos, and the bass down here. And it's the clarinets who also play along with those first 8 notes. Now, you probably have never heard the clarinets play those 8 notes. I know I've never heard the clarinets play those 8 notes, and I've conducted this piece lots of times. They're in there for some reason. I don't know what that reason is. That Beethoven thought it was important to have clarinets play, but it's one of those details that is fairly obscure. And more interesting to me is that originally he also had the flutes playing those 8 notes up an octave. So bum 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 bum, that bum 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 bum, and then he changed his mind, and you can see he rather violently scratched the flutes out, which to me indicates that he might have heard it and said, "Oh, this is a terrible idea," or he wanted to work quickly and get those flutes out of those first 8 notes because he wanted a sound that was low, deep, profound. So, if you look at this piece in modern notation, it looks like this. This is out of a score from Dover Publications that has the 4th, 5th, and 6th symphonies all together in one book. And you see the title here across the top, Beethoven's name, his dates. Here's the same Allegro con brio, and now there is a metronome marking added here. This is half note equals 108. That means a half note or one measure happens 108 times per minute. This is a metronome marking that was added by Beethoven, but it was added later. And we'll talk about metronome markings in a moment. Here's a modern score order where we group instruments by family, and we put them essentially highest to lowest within the family. So the woodwind family is up at the top, 2 flutes, and these names are in Italian, so 2 flauti, 2 oboes, 2 clarinets, 2 bassoons. This is clarinet in B flat is what this means here. 2 horns in E flat, 2 trumpets in C, timpani that plays the notes C and G, violin 1, violin 2. This is viola, cello, and bass. I think it's kind of a typical viola joke that somehow on the score they didn't get labeled, but this is where the violas are. And as a conductor, this is what I'm looking at. This is the score that I see that has all of the instruments here on the page, and it's what I study when I'm working on the score at home. So if we go back to these 8 notes, let's talk about why these 8 notes are difficult to conduct. First main problem is this thing right here. This is what we call an 8th note rest if you don't read music. It means that nobody plays on the downbeat. The downbeat is the beat that goes down, right? In this case, nobody plays on the downbeat. Instead, they play after the downbeat. They play 1/2 of a beat after the beat happens. That's very unusual for music. Ordinarily, when a conductor conducts, arm goes up, arm comes down. When it hits this sort of imaginary point that we call the ictus, then musicians play on the downbeat. But in this case, they have to play sometime after the downbeat. Bum. And that's where the preparation before I start moving my hands really matters. I'm going to adjust the camera here a moment so you can see my hands a little better. So the preparation is designed to set up the tempo before we ever start playing. In my mind, before we start playing these 8 notes, I'm thinking dun 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 dun. This tempo that I'm trying to set and that I want to get across to the musicians. And so before my hands even move, I go dun 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 mentally dun 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 dun. And then the gesture going from up back down should last exactly 4 of those notes. Dun 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 dun. And that way, if I have this so strongly internally and show it so strongly externally, the musician should know exactly how fast they're going to play those first 3 notes and how much after the downbeat they're going to play. So it should go dun 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 bum bum pum. If that works, that's really, really great. And it means that I have to show a lot of information in the very first gesture before we start playing.